Adam and Eve.
Okay, so we're at chapter 5. Chapter 5 is a difficult...
We have chapter 4.
You have both.
Oh, you want us to have both?
I want you to have
5.
You have only 5. Okay, so maybe share the 4. I only had...
Shelley.
Yeah. We're just going to reference the chapter 4. So, chapter 5 is actually, according to the Rebbe's explanation, the current, like the most recent Lubavitcher Rebbe's explanation on the Alter Rebbe's writing of the Tanya, that chapter 5 is actually in the brackets of chapter 4. And it's a Kabbalistic extension of chapter 4. And the reason why it's important is because it corrects an important nuance in our paradigm and our understanding of our existence in the world. And the Alter Rebbe wants to get that really clear before we move on. So if you look back to chapter 4, you can see the editor put end brackets, but actually
Where are you?
the end of chapter 4, actually it's the second page, Vehine, the Tzimtzum, and the concealing of life force is called the Kelim, the vessels. You see there's brackets there?
Yeah.
So according to the Rebbe's explanation of the Tanya, those brackets don't finish until the end of chapter 5. So that's why I've got copies of chapter 4 here, so that we can remember what was the end of chapter 4 talking about. And the chapter 4 was talking about the vessels, the light and the vessels. So chapter 1 of Tanya, of the second book, teaches us that we are created through letters, and the letters are packets of energy. Chapter 2 tells us that this is constant. Chapter 3 tells us that we're actually part of the sun. And we are really rays of the sun inside of the sun, and somehow, though, we feel ourselves as a separate existence. How can that be? Chapter 4 started to explain this phenomenon, explaining that there's actually 2 types of energy. There's Havaya energy, which is Chesed type of energy, and there's Elohim energy, which is Gevura type of energy. The Gevura type of energy is the Tzimtzum, which we've learned about and touched upon in book 1. And as we have been explaining it until now, it could be understood falsely that the Tzimtzum is holding back the light of the Havaya, of the Chesed. So in other words, let's say Chesed is water flowing, you want less water, you push it back, and you want less of it. You want and you make less of it come down so it doesn't flood. That's actually not the way it is. The Tzimtzum does conceal the flow of outward energy, but not in a way of diminishing the energy. It does so in the way of bringing forth its own energy, also of Hashem. So what's happening is that we have light and vessels. The light is the Havaya Chesed energy coming forth, and the Kelim, the vessels, are containing this energy, and like vessels do, concealing it, yet giving shape to it so it can be appreciated and contained. And
It's Gevura and what?
Chesed.
And
Chesed and Gevura.
Chesed is the so if Gevura is the vessel, Chesed
is the light. Yes, the light is pouring forth into the Gevura vessels, and the vessels are equal energy from Hashem. So
the vessel is our body?
Not quite in this analogy. We're gonna take this example further, more abstract, before we can apply it to like our bodies. So abstractly, and the chapter 5 is going to explain the following, and I'm going to go there and then we can understand. So chapter 5 is going to explain what chapter 4 started to explain, which is that both Chesed and Gevura are part of Hashem. Yet, chapter 6 and onwards is going to explain how Hashem doesn't have parts. But yet, both of these energies are equally part of Hashem. Okay, so it's two sides of the same coin.
You mentioned attributes.
Yes.
And
Chesed and Gevura are each attributes.
Yes. I feel like that's an easier way of dividing it in half. 'Cause
Yes and no, because attributes also would be division within Hashem. So it's really hard to understand this, and I'm trusting this book to take us through this journey of understanding how these are attributes of Hashem, yet Hashem is limitless and not divisible. Right? Indivisible, like the Pledge of Allegiance.
I need an example to understand it better.
That's where we're going. We're gonna try to give some examples. The example that I liked last week was the hot water and the cold water, which is relevant to me because we just switched one of our faucets. So, like, if the false way to understand it would be Chesed is the water and Gevura is stopping the water or filtering the water or diverting the water, maybe like damming the water, like a dam. No. Chesed is the cold, let's say the cold water, and Gevura is the warm water, or the other way around. It doesn't matter. But in order to get warm water, you need a little bit of Chesed, you need a little bit of Gevura, you need a little bit of revelation, you need a little bit of concealment, and the concealment isn't an outside force covering Hashem. The concealment itself is Hashem.
So they are both merged.
They're both God. There's flowing God and there's concealing God. And the concealing God puts forth his concealing God and to filter through his flowing God so that we can feel like ourselves.
So how we apply it?
We're going to try.
How do we apply it on our life? Like, how do we feel this energy?
Okay, so let's talk about that before we move on, actually.
How do you feel this energy?
Like,
So when we
In our
feel,
lives?
how do we feel this energy in our lives? So when we feel connected to Hashem in a very direct way, let's call that Chesed. And when we don't, and this is oversimplifying and maybe not even fully accurate, but for the sake of illustrating, let's call, and oversimplifying so that we can get more nuanced afterwards, let's call that Gevura. A lot of times, Chesed, if we look at the stories of the Torah, Gevura many times is described when God is showing strictness and punishment, judgment, right? Din, judgment is another synonym for Gevura. And we're about to actually make that very relevant in the beginning of chapter 5. So, do we like Gevura? Is Gevura fun? Not that it's in its abstract form, it's beautiful. But as it gets filtered down, maybe in a more, in a very filtered down way, it's not the fun stuff, right? It's the judgment. It's the discipline, it's the strictness, it's the limit setting. And we can have that in, since we are all images of God, we have that in our own lives. Whether it's your parenting, whether it's your relationships when you need to hold boundaries. So let's say with parenting is easier example. We were talking about parenting before, which is fun. You were talking about when they call you and they want to be bailed out and you want to, right? That's your chesed. You want to bail them out, but for their best interest, you don't. That their best interest, that limit that you put, that's Gevura. That's Gevura energy. And if we didn't parent with Gevura, our children would not thrive. It wouldn't serve them.
Is this word also strength?
Yes. It takes strength to have discipline. It's harder to have discipline than it is than not to have discipline, right? And it's also in every part of discipline. There's disciplining others and there's self-discipline. And that's why there's this amazing sentence from Pirkei Avot, from Ethics of Our Fathers, that goes, Ezehu Gibor, who is strong, Gibor, Gevura, HaKovesh et Yitzro, that who can conquer his inclination. In other words, have self-control. right? That inner discipline, self-discipline, that's what's real strength. When you meet somebody who has strength of character, you're meeting somebody who's been doing this through their life. And when you talk about building muscle, it's all through resistance, right? And discipline to show up. So all of that strength energy comes from limit setting, boundary setting. The chesed energy, the flowing energy, is really, really fun, right? But without the gevura, it's not able to be appreciated. And too much, let's say in parenting, if you ever heard of the smothering mother, right? Too much chesed can be smothering, and then our children don't get their own identities, and that doesn't serve them. So Hashem wants us to have our own identity. So he fuses chesed and gevura, and that's how we have this existence where we feel like ourselves, and then we can find Hashem and choose him and have an experience. If we didn't have gevura, we would be robbed of an experience. We would only be connected to the fact that we're rays of the sun, or we're part of the sun, which is true. We are part of the sun, but you know what else is true? We also have our own experience. And that's what chapter 5 is going to tell us. That contrary to some Eastern beliefs, where they've kind of figured out that we're part of the sun, but they haven't figured out that we're actually separate as well. Okay? It's a paradox. And they're not able to hold that paradox, so we're basically an illusion. Right? If you really, and according to some, and I'm not an expert, but a tiny bit of exposure, if you according to this school of thought, which is it's more logical. It's more logical to believe that if we are part of the sun, if we are just Hashem's energy, then we really not really here. We're an illusion. We're like that screen, right? That attached to the electricity of the wall, that movie, and that's really not really there. Like the movie's not real. Like you can cry and you can feel emotion, but it's not your life. So that's more logical. The paradox that the end of chapter 4 and chapter 5 is teaching us is that at the same time as being energy of Hashem and just being part of Hashem, we are also real. Hashem wants us to be real. Okay, this is a paradox and impossible to ever understand. Yeah. So back to the Gevura. So you asked, what's the experience of Gevura and Chesed in life, right? So actually, that's what chapter 5 opens up. In the Midrash, which is the details of the narrative of the Torah, from the oral Torah, we were taught, second line, that originally it rose in God's thought to create the world through the attribute of stern judgment, the din, midat hadin, which, as we've just learned, is gevura. Turning the page. But God saw that this wasn't going to endure. This wasn't going to be sustainable. So he added the attribute of mercy. Now, we're not talking about what it says is create the world, not run the world. So we're talking about creation. That in the attribute of thought, remember, we're created through speech, right? Through the letters of the alphabet, through the 10 utterances. That was our chapter 1 and 2 of Tanya. So before the speech happened, before the world was actually created, Allah b'machshava, if you go back to the words it says, it rose in God's thought. So when we speak, we first think and then we speak usually. There's a progression. So in the thought part, in that stage of creation, it was thought, God thought to maybe lead completely with din, with judgment. And then God thought again and said, no, we're going to be layering some mercy into that. And then God created the world how we know it. There's a hint to this, by the way, when it says Bereshit bara Elokim. What word does God use? Elokim. In the beginning, God created. The word Elokim is judgment. So, actually, the name Havaya doesn't come till much later.
Does this parallel you know, the people didn't do the right thing, the golden calf, like, and then, like, did God kind of progress,
So
evolve?
yes and no. So God doesn't evolve. That's a principle that we come with. We say God is indivisible, right? Yeah, he's indivisible. He doesn't evolve. He's one and the same, stays the same all the time. But there is an evolution in human consciousness throughout the millennia, and we have a 1,000 years millennia of Chesed, 1,000 years millennia of Gevurah, and you can track world events through these 6 millennia. The Tiferet millennia, this is a little bit of a tangent, but the Tiferet millennium of which one is it? Of it's the 3000s, and the 3000s, which is the 2448, right, when the Torah was given. So that's Tiferet. That's the third, when we were freed from slavery, the Torah was given, we built the temple. All that was a really like a sweet spot in history, and that was the millennium of Tiferet, of compassion, of mercy, the one that is the third, Chesed, Gvurah, Tiferet. So Chesed was the first 1,000 years with Adam and the beginning of humankind. The second millennium was, I want to say, no, the flood was the first. Second millennium was a lot of idol worship going on. That's the Gvurah, a lot of dissonance, Tiferet, and then it goes. And then the idea of the seventh millennium is supposed to be like Shabbat, and it's supposed to be the Messianic era. It's ahead of us.
We're 6.
6.
But what is it?
We're in the 6th millennium.
No, but like
Oh, it's Yesod, foundation, connection.
And are we, obviously the triangle now has to be another.
Yes, and now the next thing is Malchut, which is Shabbat energy, which is Messianic energy. And the Rebbe, of blessed memory, taught us, that you can halachically bring Shabbat in early. You can light candles early up to a certain point. And we are in the millennium at that point where we can usher in the Messianic era now. It's possible.
So when is it starting?
We don't know.
Like
That's the mystery of time. That's the mystery of all
I'm gonna
time.
put it in my calendar.
What is the year? It's 5,780. 89?
I'm really bad at this.
So
I think it's
like when we
5786.
So when we reach
Nice.
6,000?
Yeah.
So yeah,
So when we reach 6,000?
we should
So-
enter fully in the...
I don't think we will be alive by then.
But it could happen now. That's what I was saying about bringing Shabbat in early. That we could, but that was a real tangent.
Yeah, so when you talk about this,
But the
God
creation of the world
creating- yeah.
before. So remember that was in the thought. But once once speech started happening, it was already Chesed and Gvurah the way the world is now.
It started with both.
Yes.
One and.
But there was a
period.
thought. Excuse me. There was a thought to go with just din. Now, how would that? But the would
Just
not endure.
Gevurah.
Why would that not endure?
Just Gevurah?
Just Gevurah. So we know Chesed won't endure because we wouldn't be in existence. We just learned that last week in chapter 4.
Because we'd just be angels, right? Or it would be
Right.
too- it'd
We
be
wouldn't
too
even be
overwhelming.
angels. We would
Right,
just
right,
be
God.
drops of light in the light, in the light, in the light. We
So it
wouldn't have our
can't
own
just be
experience.
Chesed.
So it can't just be Chesed, we know that. It can't just be Gvurah. Why not?
It will be fear.
We would have zero awareness. We would be
Of ourselves.
so in our own matrix that we wouldn't be able to have any divine or godly or elevated consciousness. We would be like slaves and like so limited to our own existence.
Like,
So
like, we wouldn't have any,
clue.
we wouldn't have an awareness of our existence if it was just like, this is what you do, this is how.
We would have an awareness of our own existence, but we wouldn't have any ability to imagine the broader context of our spirit, of that where we fall in the spiritual universe of
Is that
Hashem.
because we'd be sort of robots?
I don't know if we would be robots, but I think we would be limited by our own limitations, like in a matrix, like when you don't even realize, like the people don't even realize that they're actually in a game. Like we are in a game, but we realize it. We have a consciousness, we have an awareness.
Okay.
And the Tanya continues to explain that this mercy, it really shows itself in the miracles that we've experienced and in the righteous people. They embody this mercy because they're like portals. They're like portals of light, of unfiltered light that come through to remind us what's the truth.
Wait, can you go back? Who are these? What is?
Throughout our generations, there are righteous people, right? We learned in book 1 that most human beings are not tzaddikim. We are beinanis. We are regular human beings. And then God sprinkled throughout history a few righteous souls that what they do is they light up the rest of us, like the experience of humanity by sharing their light. Their light is less filtered. It's more direct.
So connecting that to like our consciousness, our awareness, do they have more awareness?
They have more awareness, definitely. And we're about to explain that they're still limited, but they have more.
Okay.
So an example could be like when you're walking in the dark, let's say, in a storm, and you literally, there's a moonless night, cloudy night, don't see where you're going, boom, there's a flash of lightning, and for a second you can see where everything is, and it's gone. But it just gave you a tiny bit of clarity to see where you're going. And then you can use that clarity and try to find your way. So like these miracles throughout our history are like flashes of lightning. Like, oh, it's really God. Oh yeah. All this nature is really just the tool of God. I see it. No, it's fleeting because then, again, we're not spiritual robots. We have to have our own, we have to come to it. But we get little reminders, clues, little inklings that there's more, glimpses, I love that word, that there's more. So, God purposely chose to create the world with both energies. But back to the both, and this part gets really Kabbalistic. So we're going to stay focused on the why of why we're explaining this, then going into the nitty-gritty of the Kabbalah. So these attributes, we're coming back to what we started talking about. These attributes of Chesed and Gevura are equal energy of Hashem. If we were to believe that the Chesed was energy of Hashem and the Gevura was limiting of Hashem, we're basically saying there's either an outside entity, right, which isn't true, or even if we found a way to not believe that, what comes through is that we're an illusion. And it's kind of hard to follow the logic, but let's try. If the real energy is Hashem's energy, and the Tzimtzum is a smokescreen illusion, then we're part of that illusion. And the true existence is the light, the spiritual plane of existence, and our physical reality is not even there. But that's not true. And it's really hard, and this is how we started the class. It's really hard and maybe even impossible to comprehend this, but what we are trying to comprehend is that the truth of the matter is that we exist. The Tzimtzum is part of Hashem, so we are part of our existence, and feeling of existence is part of Hashem's will and part of Hashem. But our existence is completely dependent on the light coming through the vessels. So we don't exist here because we're so great, or we don't exist here because of a big bang, or whatever reason. We exist because of Hashem. We exist as a product of Hashem's fusing of his revelation and his concealment. His concealment makes us feel like we have our own reality and identity. And that reality and identity is part of the plan, and it's real. It's just part of the Gevura part of Hashem.
The concealment.
Yeah, the concealment part of Hashem. But it's Hashem.
And we contain that too.
And we are it. We don't only contain it, we are it. We are every part of this world is Hashem.
Are we also the light, the chesed?
Yes, we're both. We're the light and we're the gvura. And it's like, it a bit reminds me, I don't want to say something wrong, so that's my disclaimer, but it reminds me a bit of yin and yang. Because, or light and shadows, right? The reason why yin and yang rings so true is because it's the way the world is, right?
Light and dark.
It's different ways to describe the phenomenon of the world, right? There's the energy, and the reason why it reminds me of yin and yang is because it really is hard to divide what yin is and divide what yang is if you really get into it, because yin flows yang and yang flows yin and yin flows yang, and it's really so circular like that. So chesed and gvura, it's like, I mean, I don't want to be blasphemous, okay? So this is just a hypothesis and it could be wrong, but whenever you bring in examples from the world, you have to just be really careful to make sure, so that's my caveat. But the light and the shadows is already talked about in the Tanya texts, so I can use that more easily. But yeah, like, you can't have a painting with only light. There's nothing to look at. You can't have a painting with only shadows because it's just dark. You need to have an interplay with both. And our world is the result of that interplay. So which part, like, if you try to isolate what gvura energy is concealment energy. Try to isolate havaya energy, chesed energy, it's revelation energy, feeling more connected energy, the light, the energy, right? But they both have to work together to create the world as we know it and our lives as we know it. And the main point is that they're both Hashem. And the rest of the chapter explains that even Moses was subject to this same construct. Even the souls of Atzilus, because remember we have 4 worlds. And the end of chapter 4 explains that Chesed and Gevurah come from a plane that is even more abstract than the 4 worlds. They come from ancient days, Atik Yomin. And in this plane of existence, it's obvious that they're all one because it's so abstract. So all the more so, right? Like it's clear. This is where it's coming from. But even when it goes from Atik Yomin into Atzilus, and our souls are filtered all the way through the 4 worlds, but there are certain souls, like our forefathers and Moses, that are souls of Atzilus. Even they are subject to this tzimtzum, just by virtue of being part of creation. They are subject to this tzimtzum, and therefore they are also part of the world. And and this is the point that we're getting to. I'm just deciding if I want to, this or that. But I'm going to get to the point first, and then we can see if we have time to go back to the details of the Kabbalah. So the point of this, why is it so important to correct this possible mistake that one could make and assume that we're an illusion if we're so connected, if we're so dependent, maybe we're just an illusion, right? No. Why is it so important to correct that and say we're actually real? And the answer is because if we were an illusion, our mitzvahs would be an illusion. And then why are we even here, right? Is it just some sort of joke? But because we're really here, our mitzvahs that we act with physical, and when we interact with the physical objects, which are products of the tzimtzum, with our psyche, which is product of the tzimtzum, with our action, which is product of the tzimtzum, we are causing the ripple effect, not the ripple effect, yes, but also this, yeah, but like the almost like a chemical reaction, like this, like chain reaction, that's what I'm looking for. Chain reaction, back through the worlds, up the spiritual cosmos, back to Hashem. We're actually making that happen, as we learned about in book 1. And we're making that happen because we're real. If we weren't real, nothing would be happening. It's so philosophical, right? It's like, it's so abstract. And like, even as I'm talking, I'm like well, like I don't even get it, right? Because it's not really graspable, right? We talk about like going up the
How
cosmos.
do we know it's happening? I mean, it's nothing we can identify.
Like you can't see the connection that you're making with Hashem.
Yeah.
when
Well,
you're
that's the
doing-
chesed energy, right? That's the flow, the light energy that we're mostly not privy to. That's why we're not aware of this happening. But that's why the Alter Rebbe brought Moses into here, because Moses and certain, and even our souls after we die, by the way, is the other thing the Alter Rebbe brings into here, is privy to more of that. They are privy to more of that. They have less symptom. They're subject to less symptom because they're like products of the first step, right? So they have more awareness of the light, less affected by the shadow. So they're more aware, yet they're still part of the tzimtzum.
But less so.
But what's the difference between 0 and 1? Right? Is there any difference between 0 and 1 and 0 and 1 million? There's no difference, right? Because 0 is nothing and 1 is something. 1 and 1 million have more of a relationship than 0 and 1. Right? So they're part of the tzimtzum. That's it. Maybe they have more awareness, but they're still tzimtzum.
So
It also-
that
yeah.
we have, through these worlds, we have even less connection, and that's why it's so hard to feel connected.
I wouldn't say we have less connection. We have less awareness of our connection.
Okay.
And when the Messianic era comes, will
We will have-
everything change? Will we feel, will there still be concealment? Because God will be here.
That's the question of all times. I do know.
Nice, thank you.
No, you're asking the
$1,000.
best question.
That is a great question.
So I'm going to answer based on what I think, based on what I learned, and
Or
then I'm going to check.
It's like you're asking, will we still exist?
We will.
Kind
So the
of,
answer is
right?
that we usually follow Maimonides' outlook is that we will still exist. There will still be a world, but it's going to be an enlightened world. So basically, the beginning of we are at phase 1 of God's intention, right? God intended to create the world this way. Us creatures, we are intentional. We are intentionally created by God to be exactly as we are, with the exact amount of awareness as we have. Remember? Just the right recipe of din and rachamim, of chesed and gevura. And so that we can make choices and do things based on the little bit of awareness that we have through that mostly separateness that we feel. Okay? That's phase 1. Phase 2 is the Messianic era, which phase 1 is leading, and we are actually working to create phase 2. We are part of the creation of phase 2. And phase 2 is the completion of phase 1, where the world is here, but it is integrated beautifully with the divine. So phase 1 is the world is here, and the truth of God is hidden within the world, and we're working to reveal it, release it, unlock it wherever we go through all of our lives and everything we experience, therefore causing integration. But we're not there yet because there's so much darkness in the world that isn't integrated. There's so much suffering that means not integration. So when that's complete, it will be so integrated that there will be no suffering, there will be no evil, there will be no darkness. It will be perfect fusion of physical and spiritual reality. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Yeah, because you're asking if we'll exist.
Not only, I mean, yes, but I'm trying to understand what it would be if there's no concealment.
It will be concealment.
It will still be
It will,
concealment.
of course.
The
but it's
concealment
just
will
not-
glow.
Yes. So it will be more love, more light, more like good things, instead of the evil that we're feeling right now, the confusion.
So the evil that we
the-
feel,
Because the evil is not the concealment.
the evil is
right?
made possible by the concealment, but the evil is when the concealment doesn't have any awareness that it's concealment. It feels itself way too much. Like, right, we all know what hyper, ego looks like, megalomania, right? That's like a really good illustration of concealment, right? It's like they don't even see themselves, right? So
So you have to
in
have
the-
awareness of like
the
a
awareness
discipline
is
and
key, right? So
and
the
like a
darkness,
healthy respect for
remember we
the
talked about,
symptom.
right, so instead of being darkness, it will be shadows, right? Shadows are not negative, right? They're part of the beauty of art, right? So that I would say the darkness will glow, right? It will be,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
right? So remember we talked about the candle of darkness last week, right? That's what we're talking about, that both are equal energy. Gevura is not evil in its source. In Atik Yomen, Gevura is not evil. It's energy. It's concealment energy. It's discipline energy. It's strength energy. And the Messianic era will be the embodiment of these energies in that form. If you want to drop down and meditate for a minute, I feel like that's what we're all doing. And we can close our eyes and just take a minute to feel the light in our soul, the godly spark that we know is inside of us. This godly light is the light of that flowing godly energy that Hashem flows forth. And when we tap into it, we feel just a little bit more lit up, just a little bit more connected. Maybe we're like tapping into that stream of flow, of flowing godly consciousness, the portal of light. Taking deep breaths into it and feeling now the container for our godly light, the vessel, the body that you live in, that houses and holds your soul. And you can breathe into your fingertips. You can breathe into the palms of your hands. Breathe into your forearms. Breathe into your arms. Breathe into the cavity of your chest. Let it expand fully. And exhale fully. Feeling the borders of your body as you take each breath. And feeling your soul take up space inside of the borders of your body. And feeling that you are here. Feel your feet grounded on the earth. Take a deep breath. Invite the breath into the lower part of your body, into your legs, your knees, your shins, your feet, your soles, your toes, feeling the presence of your body in the earth, housing your soul. feel your presence. And breathe into both your physical presence and your spiritual identity, your soul. And with each breath, feel the intermingling of the two, the integration of your soul within your body. Pay attention to any emotions that come up. Maybe you feel awe. Maybe you feel peace. I'm feeling gratitude. Maybe you feel gratitude for Hashem choosing to put you here and make you real, present, while simultaneously housing and giving expression to the light of the flowing godly force within you, providing it a vehicle through which it can communicate, accomplish, uplift, and change the surroundings that you are really and fully present within, while maintaining awareness of from where you came and are coming from at every moment. Like an agent, perhaps. A worthy agent, a valuable agent. And with that, maybe linger with whatever feelings you're feeling. Maybe it's that gratitude that you are where you are, and you are who you are. Deeply and inherently worthy. Whenever you feel like you've found that feeling you want to hold on to, you're welcome to open your eyes and bring that feeling with you to your day, your life. I want to hear your experience, but I want to not forget to share another thought I had, a reflection I had about this, the ramifications of being real. Does anyone have anything to share before we just get philosophical?
No, I felt peace come in when you were like integrating the
Yeah.
two, and I felt really filled. It's the worthiness that I have trouble with, because it directly goes to my shame.
Oh, of course it does.
That's just something I'm working on.
Absolutely, as am I.
All the time.
Yeah. And I think that when we find that, I think it unlocks so much potential, right?
So for me, I agree with you, this, integration. But then instead of staying in my body, in my experience, I was trying to go into yours. Like, I don't know if you understand what I mean, but I was trying to from your body. See from,
As a like in other words, if you have this phenomenon to be true,
Yes.
like
And
radical empathy of like feeling, wow, this same experience is
Exactly.
happening
Exactly.
to so many of us simultaneously.
And feeling that, I think it's kind of easier to accept this worthiness because you're not attaching to you, but to someone else's experience. Then I could see the beauty of each of your experiences more than my own. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a perspective. I think what you're saying is you have perspective. And that's something that, like a story that I once found myself tapping into about worthiness was I started to watch other people get celebrated as they walked into a room. And I used to be like, I feel
Happy.
wonderful and
Yes.
happy when this person walks into a room. And I'm like, if this person has inherent worthiness, I must have it as well.
Exactly.
And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes, because I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't want to kind of make it about me,
Mm.
And so I was like thinking, how is it to feel that in your experience, in your body, with your soul? And I was like, wow, this must be amazing.
At the same time, I think it is about us. It's about everyone and us.
Yes.
And everyone and sort of, and that's what unifies us, is that it's not you and not me, it's me and you, right?
Yes, and we're the same as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. But I want to share another thing that I was thinking about as I was studying the chapter. I was thinking, wow, what radical validation this is. When we're told, you're real. Right? It's fun sometimes to transcend and say, okay, my problems aren't really problems. It's really just Hashem's energy, which is true. It's true on another, like it's the real existence is Hashem, and this is kind of all physical, and it's really nice. It's a bit more transcendent, though. But it's not always, I find, realistic to expect ourselves to be so enlightened all the time, right? Like we talked about that. Like we
Yeah.
live a life, and I don't know how sustainable it is to be removed from our life when we're in our life, and maybe it's not even warranted and not wanted of us, right? And I think the example is from the Tanya that we are real, and how validating it is when we are going through something really hard, and we are having an experience that is happening, to be validated and said, you're having that experience. It's really happening to you. It's really happening with you. At the same time as having the awareness that it's not just my body separated and removed from the energy of Hashem, and like I'm both. I am having a physical experience with the ability to elevate spiritually in my consciousness at the same time, and not be it's happening, it's real, I'm feeling this, yet I'm not limited by it. I am my neshama isn't getting hurt. My neshama, my soul, has inherent worthiness through everything, what anybody says and what anything that's happening, or any self-talk that I'm having. If I'm going to tune into my real, true, deep self, it's like, it's Hashem, it's worthy, it's with me. And it's so different than, I think it's different on both, like from both extremes that we find in the world. It's different from the over-identifying with the suffering, and it's different than wish-washing it away and whitewashing it. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. It's really, but it takes more work, I think, because you can't escape, because it's really happening. But you're also being asked to elevate within. So it's like you need to look straight yourself and whatever you're going through straight in the eyes, and not, dissociate, yet process and elevate. Yes.
But that's when you change it's happening to me, like it's happening for me. or true.
Ooh, I just got chills.
Because
Wow.
if something bad happens, it's so normal to ask, why is it happening to me, right? And then when you have the awareness, you just ask,
What's the lesson?
yeah, you ask yourself, what's the lesson, but you know it's happening for you. What is it that I have to learn from that experience? Like, it happened for a reason. It's not
I'm getting
happening-
chills.
It's not happening
Yeah.
to me anymore, it's happening for me.
I think that's
And
a
then later
real-
on, it's like, it's happening through me.
Wow.
This is a huge shift. I think that word really encapsulates what we're talking about, and to me takes it to another level even. Like, happening to me is like that over-identifying with, with the story and with that, and happening for me is I'm having the experience. It's real, yet it can be for me. It can be, I can go through it, elevate it, process it, and
Exactly.
be right.
It's also
And then
less
through me is
painful
even
because,
another.
yes, sometimes something bad happened and it is painful, right? But you just telling yourself, okay, it's happening for me right now. I can cry or let it out, but why? What do I have to learn
And-
here and change so
And
that
it
will not
invites your
repeat?
soul's journey right there,
Exactly.
right? And it invites whatever it is that your soul needs to learn, like you're saying, and needs to grow through.
And then it's also changing from victim mentality to grateful. I'm so happy that it happened to me because I grow right now. I learn. I will not repeat this mistake, or this lesson will not repeat.
Or even
again.
spiritually, like you're
Exactly.
talking practically, which is true, but even spiritually, sometimes we find deep connection to the Hashem within us, or to the Hashem that is all-encompassing. When we are going through something difficult, we find that depth within ourselves, right? Maybe that's the for me, right?
I wanted to read something last night that came in my tea bag, and I thought of all of us today. And it said, the purpose of life is to know yourself, love yourself, trust yourself, and be yourself. And I think this connects so beautifully with what we
I
were
like that
talking-
one.
It's very
And the question is,
beautiful. That
which
it's okay.
yeah,
The shame
and the
part.
self being
Godly
self, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I really love what you said, like the third step about the through you.
Yeah.
That takes time to reach that.
This is amazing.
Mm.
Really, I mean, I heard that before, it's not to you, it's for you, but the through you.
That's the last stage, and it's hard. Like, I'm not there yet. I'm close, but not there. But it is the last stage, and that's when you just pass.
That's when you're the vessel.
Well, what you're
Yeah,
just,
that's
the vessel, exactly,
Yeah.
the vessel, and that's what the forefathers were called, the Merkava, the chariot, because, they were vehicles, not only vessels, vehicles for the Hashem to come through them. Well, that was really, thank you for studying that together with me, that was beautiful.
Thank you for the meditation. It was
Yes.
perfect.
It was
Right
beautiful.
where-
Yeah,
really
it's been a
helpful.
while since we've meditated, and
And we really needed it with that.